One of the most important concepts in economics is opportunity cost. Understanding this concept is important because there are two aspects of modern economics that are dependent on it. First, the idea of specialization or division of labor assumes that the opportunity costs of engaging in a job are different for different individuals. Second, the opportunity cost is the rationale for international trade, because it is assumed that different countries will have different opportunity costs of producing a product and therefore should specialize in the production of a particular product. So what is the opportunity cost? The opportunity cost is the relative cost of a good or service. More formally, opportunity cost is what is given up, foregone, in order to acquire more of something else. Sometimes this is phrased as the amount of good A that must be given up in order to acquire more of good B. The formula that describes this relationship is the amount of good A given up divided by the amount of good B gained. Let's look at a situation that occurs perhaps between two kids after Halloween. So they trade candy. Joe gave Colleen 8 pieces of candy and got 4 pieces of candy in return. What did it cost Joe to get the 4 pieces of candy from Colleen? One way would be to separate the candy and divide the candy corn between each of the wrapped pieces of candy. As we can see, each piece of wrapped candy cost Joe 2 pieces of candy corn. The cost could also be found by calculating the opportunity cost using the formula amount given up divided by the amount gained. The procedure for using a formula to do the calculation is write down the formula for calculating the opportunity costs, decide what the person gives up, decide what the person gains from the transaction, substitute in what the person gives up into the formula, substitute in what the person gains into the formula, and divide the amount given up by the amount gained. Let's see how we might use a formula to calculate the opportunity cost of the wrapped candy. Let's take a minute to review the situation. Joe and Colleen each have some candy. Joe has 14 pieces of candy corn and Colleen has 8 pieces of wrapped candy. Joe wants to trade 8 pieces of candy corn for 4 pieces of wrapped candy. Colleen agrees to the trade. So Joe gives Colleen 8 pieces of candy corn and Colleen gives Joe 4 pieces of candy. Joe lost 8 pieces of candy corn to Colleen and gained 4 pieces of wrapped candy from her. So what is the opportunity cost of the wrapped candy? The first step is to write down the formula, the amount given up divided by the amount gained. Second, we need to determine what was given up. In this case, Joe gave up candy corn. So we're going to substitute in candy corn for what is given up. Third step is to determine what was gained. In this case, Joe gained wrapped candy. So we will substitute in wrapped candy for what was gained. Fourth step is to substitute in what Joe gave up into the formula. In this case, he gave up 8 pieces of candy corn. The fifth step is to substitute in what Colleen gave to Joe, or what Joe gained. In this case, Joe gained wrapped candy, and so we will substitute in the 4 pieces of wrapped candy into the formula. The sixth step is to divide 8 by 4, or what was given up by what was gained. So the opportunity cost of wrapped candy is 2 pieces of candy corn. One of the important things that you could always do when doing calculations is to write a short sentence describing the number that you reach. So the fact that we have just 2 doesn't tell us so much. The right answer, the correct answer, is to say the opportunity cost of Joe acquiring candy corn from Colleen is 2 pieces of candy corn per piece of wrapped candy. We can look at the same problem from Colleen's perspective. To do this, we need to rephrase the situation. Let's take a minute to look at the problem. In this case, we're looking at it from Colleen's perspective. So Colleen gave Joe 4 pieces of wrapped candy, and in turn, Joe gave Colleen 8 pieces of candy corn. What did the pieces of wrapped candy cost Colleen? The procedure to figure out this is the same as the original. First, we'll need to write down the formula, the amount given up divided by the amount gained. Second step is to determine what was given up. In this case, Colleen gave up wrapped candy. The next step is to determine what was gained. In this case, Colleen gained candy corn. Next step is to substitute in the amount of what was given up into the formula. Since Colleen gave up 4 pieces of wrapped candy, we will substitute in for wrapped candy 4. Next, we need to substitute in the value of what Colleen gained. In this case, she gained 8 pieces of candy corn, so we will substitute 8 into the formula. The next step is to divide 4 by 8, which gives us an opportunity cost of 0.5. The correct answer would be to write out a sentence describing what 0.5 means. In this case, the opportunity cost of Colleen acquiring candy corn from Joe is half a piece of wrapped candy per piece of candy corn. Let's look at another example of calculating opportunity cost. Suppose, for example, a sign in a grocery store window says 5 bottles of pop for $10. What is the opportunity cost if you decide to buy the pop? The first thing we need to do is to write down the formula. Opportunity cost is equal to amount given up divided by amount gained. The second thing is we need to know what we gave up. In this case, we gave up $10. We're going to substitute in $10 for what was given up. Next, we'll need to substitute in what was gained. In this case, we gained 5 bottles of pop. So we will substitute in 5 bottles in for the amount gained. The next step is to divide the amount given up by the amount gained, or $10 divided by 5 bottles of pop. This gives us an opportunity cost of $2 per bottle. So once again, we're going to write a sentence saying the opportunity cost of you acquiring a bottle of pop at this store is $2 per bottle of pop. Let's look at the opportunity cost and production possibilities curve. As you may remember, the production possibilities curve is a pictorial or graphical representation of the trade-off between producing one good or another good for a given level of technology and resources. Let's look at the production possibilities curve of a paper mill that produces both lined paper and plain paper. Notice we're interested at the point where the company produces 1,200 reams of plain paper and 400 reams of lined paper. The question we're asking is, what is the opportunity cost of producing lined paper instead of plain paper? Once again, we'll need to ask some questions. What did the company gain by producing lined paper? What was the cost of the company of producing lined paper? Our formula, once again, is going to be the opportunity cost equal to the amount that was given up divided by the amount gained. The question being posed is what is the opportunity cost of producing lined paper instead of plain paper? To do this, we will need to write down our formula. opportunity cost is equal to the amount given up divided by the amount gained. We're going to need to substitute in something for the amount gained. The words opportunity cost is a code word for the thing that is being gained. So whenever you see the words opportunity cost of producing some good, that means that will be substituted in for the amount gained. Since the words producing lined paper follow the words opportunity cost, we are going to substitute in for the amount gained the amount of lined paper produced by the company. The next thing that we're going to need to do is figure out what was given up. The only other good in this scenario is lined paper. Since the lined paper is the only other good in this scenario, that will be substituted in for the amount given up. So our formula will become the opportunity cost is equal to the amount of plain paper produced divided by the amount of lined paper produced. Our next step is to substitute in the values. The amount of plain paper that was produced was 1200 reams, so we substitute in 1200 for plain paper in the formula. Since the amount of lined paper produced is 400 reams, we will substitute that into the formula. The next step is to divide 1200 by 400, which gives us an opportunity cost of 3. So the correct answer is the cost of 1 ream of lined paper is 3 reams of plain paper. As you remember, Joe is a student and he occasionally works. You may also remember that Joe has 24 hours a day and he sleeps for 8 of those hours and needs 4 hours to eat and take care of his personal hygiene needs. The remaining 12 hours he can either work or study, but not both at the same time. Let's take a look at his choices. As you remember, Joe's possibilities are summarized in the table below. Fortunately, we're not going to spend a whole long time going through the whole table because we're going to be interested at the opportunity cost of working at a particular point. In this case, we're going to focus in at point F. At this point, Joe can study for 3 hours or he can work for 9 hours. To figure out the opportunity cost of working at point F, we're going to need to once again write down our formula. Opportunity cost is equal to the amount given up divided by the amount gained. So we need to ask ourselves, what does Joe gain and what does Joe give up? The thing that he gains, once again, is work. How do we know that? We know that because the problem asks for the opportunity cost of working. Anything that comes after the words opportunity cost is the amount gained. So we're going to substitute in hours worked for the amount gained. What Joe will give up is hours studying at the community college. So we will substitute in hours at the community college for the amount given up. The next thing we need to do is to substitute in the numbers of hours that he works at point F, which in this case is 9. Next, we're going to need to substitute in the number of hours at the community college, which in this case is 3. Dividing 3 by 9 gives us 3.3 or 1/3 of an hour or 20 minutes. So the correct answer is the cost of an hour of working is 0.33 hours of studying or 1/3 of an hour of studying.